Okay, hello again. We're continuing the program with the ethical AI track, and the first lecture here is by Anchal Bhalla, and the title of the presentation is Exploring the Truth of AI. With the growing need of AI applications in the real world, it becomes all more necessary to incorporate trusted AI. In this talk, we'll hear about dangers of bias in AI models and how to build more auditable and trusted production-ready models to make use of the AI explainable. So welcome, and the mic is yours.
Sure. Thank you so much for introducing me. Hi everyone. So thank you so much for joining this session today. Just a second. I'm just okay. So thank you so much for joining this session today. I'm so excited to be talking to you all about explainable AI and ethical AI. So I'm sure most of you would have heard about this topic in many places. Must have heard about. Voice bots and might have struggled with them and would have thought what if like these bots were more humanized, and this is what this talk will be about: how AI can be more inclusive, how we can have an ethical and fair AI system. So just a little introduction about me. So my name is Anchal Bhalla. I am a senior data scientist here at Capgemini and based out of Dubai. So my work mainly involves working with different clients in the Middle East to deliver data science and AI projects. Apart from my job, I'm also part of multiple data science and AI communities like the Women in Data Science community. So what we'll be covering today. So this is the agenda that we will be going over. So we will first briefly, very briefly, look at AI and machine learning and then move on to ethical AI. So we'll be exploring some facts, some figures, and we'll also be looking at some of the ethical AI dilemmas. So discrimination is not the only dilemma that exists in ethical AI. There are multiple other dilemmas that we will be exploring. And then we'll be exploring biases in AI, one of the dilemmas that we would have discussed. There exist multiple types of biases in AI, so that's something that we'll be looking at, and even some real life examples of that. So, at the end, we'll also be looking at some of the solutions, how we can solve this problem that exists, how we can try to eliminate biases. Bias cannot be completely eliminated, but we can always minimize the bias that is there. And we'll also be covering explainable AI, which is one of the solutions to solving biases in AI. And then at the end, we'll be exploring a trusted AI framework that every organization can uh, help deploy. So, AI and machine learning. I'm sure all of you must have heard about this topic. It's a buzzword, and you might have even used an AI application today itself, maybe. Um, it maybe be on your phone or in your car at a bank. It it is everywhere, and what is even more fascinating about this topic is that what so this topic uh just used to be as research papers, but then now this is something that we are actually seeing applications of. So, can AI actually be trusted? Is it ethical enough? Well, uh, this question will always be there. That can AI be trusted, because there are multiple discrimination laws that exist. So, these facts were actually driven from the AI and Ethical Conundrum report that is by Capgemini. So what this report is saying is that why ethics is actually an important topic. So they are saying that discrimination and biases in AI can exist, and that this can actually have a negative customer experience for the for an organization, and this can actually be very costly for them. And most of the discrimination actually comes from healthcare and public sector, and this can be due to any social or any cultural differences that are there, and there can be differences even when data is only collected from one particular country. So organizations have realized this, that not having ethical AI can be very dangerous for them, because they have attracted legal cases against them. Customers have protested against this in the past 2 to 3 years, and they also go ahead and share these negative experiences with your families and friends, and this is something not good for an organization's brand as well. So seeing that this is having a negative experience on their organizations, what organizations have started to do is that they've started employing more people who would be responsible towards ethical AI. So, what is exactly ethical AI? Now, ethical AI means implementing an AI system that that is fair towards multiple groups of people. It is not only fair towards the people that have built it, or the people that they mostly prefer. It's being fair. It's not causing any harm to most of the people around them. So why is addressing ethical AI so important to organizations? Well, the answer is trust and loyalty. Organizations have realized that if they're not being ethical to to the people, to their customers, they are going to lose trust of their customers, and then hence they would even lose a lot of business. So in a Capgemini research report with the same name as the title of this presentation, they found out that organizations which have started implementing ethical AI applications, they actually have a higher NPS score than the ones that don't. So even executives have even realized this, and they've started employing more people, as I mentioned before, who are concentrating more on building ethical AI. So, what are the ethical dilemmas? So, as I mentioned before, discrimination is not only the one ethical AI dilemma that exists. There are multiple other dilemmas as well. So the first one, biases. So biases can actually exist, like from the humans that are building the AI model itself, and this can happen because they are the ones who are creating the training data set. They are the ones that are building the model. So this is how biases can actually be incorporated in the model itself. The second one is autonomous things and self-driving cars. So I'm not sure if you would have heard about this news, but then in 2018, a Uber self-driving car actually hit a pedestrian, and later this pedestrian actually died. And this was the first case that where a self-driving car was actually involved. So this is where the question of accountability and liability exists. So the government and the public is actually starting to realize that this is actually a problem, and who is going to be accountable, who is going to be liable for these kind of accidents that exist when self-driving cars are involved. Unemployment. So unemployment actually exists even outside the world of ethical AI, and I'm sure you must have seen like a lot of articles where they're saying AI is going to be taking multiple jobs. Well, this is true, and this is like a very debatable topic. um, a, the AI is going to eliminate some of the tasks um, that some of the people do, but then on the other hand, it's also creating different jobs as well, like different jobs in different sectors. Like for example, You, if you're skilled in ethical AI, that is going to be a benefit. Then if you're skilled in AI data science, this is again increasing more skills, increasing more jobs. The fourth dilemma is surveillance and privacy. So when we talk about surveillance and privacy, we're actually talking about facial recognition. So, well, if there is going to be surveillance in a particular area, privacy is again not going to be there, and this is something different firms like Microsoft and IBM have realized, and they've even edited or completely removed some of their facial recognition services as well. The fifth point is about deepfakes. So deepfakes is actually a very controversial topic, and I'm sure you might have seen like so many videos about where you might have seen a celebrity talking about some very controversial topic, and then in the end you found out that, oh, this video was actually fake, and this was actually created using deepfakes. So the government is actually very concerned about this of because when these celebrities or very important people have started when fake videos have started coming up about these people, the people will start losing trust in these influential people in even in the media, even on news channels itself. Autonomous weapons. So autonomous weapons. So the UN has also uh, has has different agendas like on this. Like killer robots is actually one of them that they're concerned about and something that they are speaking about. So out of all of this, I'll be speaking mostly about the biases in AI, and that's something that we'll be exploring further. So biases in AI. Well, as I mentioned, biases in AI can exist in through the training data sets. We know that to create an AI application, we need data. We need historical data, which would then be fed into the model, and a model will be created. So biases can be included in this, because we humans make mistakes, and this is how um, these biases can actually come in. So now there are two different types of biases that can exist. So the first one is cognitive bias. So cognitive bias is actually where how we feel towards a particular group of people, and then we unknowingly actually incorporate these biases into the training data set. And this can also be something that has happened in the past as well. Any biases that were existed in the past, uh, while collecting any historical data, and this is how this biases can then continue, and the training data set can then be biased. Lack of data. So, when we don't have the complete data set, when we haven't collected the data set for the entire population, this is where biases can again happen. Like if I were to give an example, so let's say that as a researcher, you've only collected data about undergraduate students. You haven't collected data about the postgraduate students or even the faculty of a university. You wouldn't really have the entire picture, and your model at the end is going to be biased towards all these different groups of people. So it's important to actually try to collect try to collect the data for all of the people that exist in the population. So some real life examples. The first one is Facebook ads. So um, a couple years ago, what Facebook was doing was that it allowed its advertisers to actually use information like the age, the gender, the race of certain people, and the jobs were actually targeted towards these people using these features. So, like for example, a woman might be seeing jobs for, let's say, a nurse, whereas men would start seeing jobs for any janitor work, any taxi driver. So these jobs were actually biased towards these people because of their race, their age, their gender. So this is where Facebook realized that this is actually a problem, and it actually stopped advertisers from actually doing this altogether. And the second one is where Amazon actually had a bias recruiting tool. So I know every organization, everyone loves automation, and this is where Amazon as well had a recruiting tool where this recruiting tool was actually biased towards women. So we know that there is actually a male dominance in the tech world, and this is where Amazon's previous data, their historical data, had less data about the women, and it started ranking the women candidates lower than the male candidates. And they actually had to scrape off this entire tool altogether. The third one is the healthcare system. So, a healthcare system in the US was actually showing biases towards their patients. So what this healthcare system was doing was that it was actually favoring the white people more than the black people. So this is because of the metrics and also, like, again, historical data, because there was more historical data present towards the white people that were there. So, what is the solution for all of this? I'm sure you must have realized this by now, that data is key over here, and your data needs to be really good for this to not exist, for this problem to not exist. So, diversifying your data. So, you need to ensure that you're covering most of the groups of people. And you're trying to support as many languages. You're trying to have dialects. You're trying to collect data from different geographies. This is how you can actually diversify your data. Allowing different opinions. We all have different opinions, so we need to allow people to express their views, try to see what they're saying, and also try and incorporate these opinions into the model. Gathering a diversified data science team. So we need to ensure that the data science team that is there, is actually a diverse data team. We can then see that there are different cultures, different practices being applied, and all of this can actually be incorporated into the data set, into the training model that is being created. One thing that many people think is that once you've created a data science model, that's it. Like, that your job is done. Like, you just keep the model and it keeps running. Well, this is actually wrong. You need to ensure that the model that you've created is actually correctly maintained, and its accuracy is preserved. And this is where you would be collecting feedback continuously and retraining the model continuously as well. Research and development. So, companies and organizations can also have a research department where they can research about um, different um, different techniques, how to embed more ethical AI into their applications. The last point is explainability. So, explainability, very simply, is ensuring that your model that you've created is giving decisions that are actually explainable. So these decisions are explainable enough, they're transparent enough. So this is where I will be explaining explainable AI with an example. So right now we know that, okay, we have a training data set. We train it. We tweak it with the different learning parameters, and we get an output where we just see, okay, the price of the house is so and so dollars, pounds. And now the user is confused that, okay, you've given me such a high price. How can I trust this? Why is it so expensive? Like, what are the reasons? So this is where explainability comes into this picture. So you have the price of the house, you embed an explainable model, and it explains, okay, the price of the house is expensive because it's in a good neighborhood, it has so and so bathrooms, it has a garden, that's why I've given you this price of the house. So it's actually showing you the different features that were actually used to come up with this certain decision. So this is explainability. To give an example about this, so again, Facebook. So Facebook actually embedded explainable AI into their application. So you must have actually um, seen this feature as well. So what Facebook actually did is that you might be seeing why you're seeing this post feature. So what they actually did is that along with the brand that is advertising, along with giving their details, they're also showing you what details about you were actually used by this advertiser to come up with this decision. So it could say, okay, we use like certain contact information about you because you liked this person's post, because you reacted to this person's text. That's why you are seeing this post right now. So they have actually embedded explainable AI into their system to show their users why a certain post is targeted just towards them. So why do we need explainability? So we need explainability because we can actually verify the ML model. So we can verify that the ML model is actually giving the right results. We can improve the ML model further. So if there are any issues in the ML model that you see, okay, it's not giving me the right results, you can always go ahead and retrain the model again. So you're learning new insights. So you can actually get to know about some of the hidden insights that are there, like that were previously not seen. You can now um, realize them by using explainability. Debugging predictions. So this is actually the same as the first 2 points. You need to you can again see why your model is giving the wrong results because of explainability. Laws against discrimination. So this is something that I've actually talked about before as well. So there are multiple laws by the government towards a person's age, person's gender, for people with disabilities. So all these laws require you to actually have your decisions explained. So this is why explainability can be very important for this aspect as well. So this actually brings me to the last slide. So the trusted AI framework. So and this is actually a report again by Capgemini as well called Trusted AI. So what this framework is actually trying to say is that you need to ensure ethics is actually there in every phase of this framework. So in the discovery phase, when you're trying to set up your project, you are trying to build a team, you're trying to identify a partner, you're trying to identify data sets, you need to ensure that ethics is actually embedded over here. You need to ensure it's also there in the training phase when you're trying to train your model, when you're trying to see if the model is giving the right results, you're trying to embed explainability at this point. And then at the deployment phase, you ensure that who would be accountable for this, the ownership of the model, the monitoring, the maintenance of the model, all of this needs to be taken care in the deployment phase as well. So, will AI ever be completely unbiased? Well, in my opinion, technically, yes, it is possible for a model to be completely unbiased, but then we don't live in a perfect world. We don't live in a utopic world where everything can be unbiased. We as humans make mistakes and we can be unbiased and at some point. So it wouldn't be complete, AI cannot be completely unbiased, but our goal can always be to minimize the biases that exist and to ensure our AI model is as fair as possible. And yeah, that actually brings me to the end. Thank you so much.
Thank you for the great presentation. I think that we don't have any questions, but we have your contact information. So if anyone's interested, they can reach out to you. Or let's wait for 30 seconds and see if anyone has anything to
Yeah.
ask.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, no questions. Thank you. We'll start in 3 minutes and continue with the panel discussion.